Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Cold Case Christmas 2025. If you're new to my channels and you want to catch up on the last 3 years of episodes, then there is a playlist and all episodes are in there. You can watch all of them or some of them, but they're all there for you to dig into. And for those that aren't new, you will know that in December I cover a different cold case, which can be a missing person or an unsolved murder, every day from December 1st up to and including December 24th. It's like opening an advent calendar. And the idea behind these videos is to give a brief overview of a case with the hope that people will dig in further, find out more about these cases, and also obviously to raise awareness for cases that perhaps haven't had the amount of coverage that they deserve. In this episode, we're going to a familiar location for those who've been following true crime over the last 3 years, and that is Moscow, Idaho. If you've been following the true crime news over the last 3 years, it would be impossible for you not to recognise that name, Moscow, Idaho. Of course, it's a location where University of Idaho students Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Maddie Morgan and Kaylee Gonzalez were brutally murdered in the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022 by Brian Kohberger. Well, in this episode, we're going back to the University of Idaho and to the very same location where Kohberger did his killing. But this is a long time ago. This is 1981. And this is the unsolved murder of Kristin David. Kristin David was a 22-year-old college senior at the University of Idaho. She was an avid cyclist, and this particular day, June 26, 1981, it was a beautiful morning. So Kristin set out for a long bike ride. She set off from her home in Moscow, Idaho, and she was intending on going south down Highway 95, so the very highway that Kohberger went on after the murders, all the way down to Lewiston, where she was planning to stay with her sister for the summer. She'd been back the day before to her university digs to get her bike, so she could spend the summer cycling, spending time with her family, and just chilling out before the next step in her life. But she never made it, because she was brutally murdered. She was last seen alive around 10 a.m. on US Highway 95, travelling, as she intended, towards Lewiston. Early in the investigation, multiple individuals travelling along Highway 95 on that day reported seeing a female cyclist matching Kristin's description being approached by a man driving a brown van on the west or southbound side of the highway just outside of Genesee in Idaho. Additional reports, according to the FBI, suggest that the same man spoke to or approached other female cyclists or pedestrians along Highway 95 that same day. But to this day, the identity of that man is unknown. He was described at the time by multiple witnesses as a white male, approximately 30 years old, weighing roughly 180 pounds and about maybe 5'10". The unknown suspect was further described as being stocky or husky with a beard. His hair and beard were described as brown by one individual and red or reddish by another. He was reportedly to be driving a well-kept brown van with a yellow license plate with dark lettering. The license plate number is unknown, but it possibly ended in a 37 and it was possibly an Oregon plate, but that's just a maybe. It's unknown if the suspect was the van's registered owner. Witnesses also thought that the van might have a side sliding door on the passenger side and 2 swing-out rear doors, each of the window. This is a police sketch that was done at the time. A few days later, on July the 4th, Kristin's dismembered remains began to be discovered in and along the Snail River. These were concealed inside black plastic bags, and some of the body parts were wrapped in pages from various April editions of the local newspaper Lewiston Morning Tribune. These were dated April 7th, April 17th, April 19th and April 24th. So not just one random paper, this is somebody who buys that particular newspaper regularly, so likely someone living in the Lewiston area. So most of the remains that were recovered were found along the Snail River 6 miles west of Clarkston. Some, but not all of the remains were recovered elsewhere along the river the next day. Kristin's blue 10-speed bicycle was never found, nor was her clothing or any other personal items that she might have been carrying, leaving little for cops to go on. And although they searched for months into years for this killer, the case just went cold, and here we are over 40 years later. Yet another unsolved murder. Some believe that Kristin was the possible victim of the Lewis and Clark Valley serial killer who preyed on Idaho communities of Lewiston and Clarkston in the late 1970s and early 1980s, claiming the lives of at least 4 young victims and possibly more. However, those other victims weren't dismembered, with body parts wrapped separately and discarded in garbage bags. So, if it was the same person, they've changed their disposal method. Brian Stewart, an Idaho trial attorney, told Fox News, to connect these cases, investigators look for consistent signatures, behavioural patterns, methods of abduction, victim profiles and disposal techniques. Here you're talking about a relatively small region and a tight time window. When young people keep disappearing or turning up dead under unusual circumstances, you have to ask whether there's a common perpetrator. Stewart believes that this case could be solved because of the advances in DNA technology. In the past, investigators had fingerprints and instincts. Today, DNA technology, digital evidence databases and genealogy tracing can breathe life into even the coldest of cases. Evidence that once sat dormant in an evidence locker now has the power to speak. With those tools, even a 40-year-old case like Kristin's can still break wide open. We've seen decades-old cases solved across the country using modern tools. If the right piece of evidence was reanalysed or the right person finally came forward, Kristin's case absolutely could be solved. Over the years, the FBI developed a 20-point psychological profile of the killer. He was likely a white male, 21 to 28 years old, which fits with the description that the witnesses gave of a white male around 30, who lived alone or with a girlfriend or his mother and was intelligent but an underachiever. The profile states he probably owned a late model vehicle, which he is proud of, cruises the area in his vehicle. Well, he was cruising the area in a vehicle. He was seen several times that day, so the FBI are not really telling us that the eyewitnesses didn't already tell us. It's also been speculated that this person kept part of Kristin's body as a trophy, or maybe to cannibalise, as part of her right leg was never found. I suspect that possibly it was just never found because maybe it sunk to the bottom of the river. If the killer kept it, I mean, how long did they keep it? What did they do with it? Is the question. And was the dismemberment part of the satisfaction, part of the psyche of the killer, or was it purely a disposal method, using newspapers and garbage bags, thinking that if they disposed of small enough pieces, then Kristin's body would never be discovered? So, was Kristin David the victim of a particularly sick, perverse individual who took satisfaction in dismembering her body? Or was she one of the Lewis Clark Valley murder victims? The FBI believe that there's still people from the community who perhaps haven't come forward with information that could help solve the case. And as time goes by and people die and people's loyalties change, maybe because someone is dead now, and you might be able to speak now when you couldn't in the past. Perhaps now is the time to speak out. In 2021, at the 40th mark, the FBI held a press conference appealing for assistance from the public. Quoting, "Today, we are renewing our call for the public's assistance. We believe there are members of the community, whether they remain local or not, who haven't yet come forward with information that could help solve this case. If you haven't talked to law enforcement about what you know, please come forward now. No tip is too small or too insignificant." So anyone with information on the murder of Kristin David is urged to call the FBI on 1-800-CALL-FBI or visit their website at tips.fbi.gov. So, is there someone out there who has knowledge of this case, who could break the case wide open? Is there DNA that remains in an evidence locker that needs to be reanalysed? Possibly. Moscow, Idaho, over the last 3 years, has been through the absolute ringer with the Idaho student murders. Maybe that's brought up something for someone, and they're now ready to talk. That's it for episode 1. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye, folks.